to this episode of Young Africa Today. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the first of the last 4 instruments that I believe Africa needs, or that we need in Africa, in order to help youth transform the continent. And this is an instrument that's actually going to be run out as a franchise-based business, in the same way as the Young Africa School program is also a franchise-based system. So with the Young Africa School, we are mobilizing the 200 million unemployed youth across the continent to help transform the education sector on the continent by enabling the youth to be able to run the Young Africa School program in support of the education services provided by the governments all across Africa. By having additional resources, by having additional inputs, by bringing a lot of interesting opportunities for our children in Africa, these young students, the Leadership and Entrepreneurship Program students, can really help to grow the next generation of leaders already while they themselves are growing. In my life, I've always learned that I'm better at adopting new behaviors and new habits that are good for me if I teach them to others. Because if I do so, I have to be a role model. And it helps me to set my own boundaries, because it's not just me accounting to myself and to God, I'm also accounting to people. And yes, I know accounting to God is always the most important thing. The Bible says we are God's hands, really. We are doing God's work. We're supposed to be His children and do His work. And so whatever we do, we account to Him. And at the end of our lives, we are going to be called to account by God, who made us, to ask you, what have you done? What have you done in your life that I gave you? But anyway, so we are going to work through the Young Africa School program to roll out support services to schools, no matter where they are, all across Africa. That's the plan with the Young Africa School program. Then we have the need that every community has, and that is around community care. Community care, for me, is all about safety. It's about making sure that our communities are safe, that our children can play on the streets, that our neighbors don't have to worry when they leave the house, that somebody is going to break in. So that's the first part. The second part is around health in terms of emergency response. So it's about making sure that all the students who are going to be more interested in getting engaged, involved in the community care program or franchise, rather than in the Young Africa School franchise, they are going to undergo first aid training so that they understand what to do in a health emergency. And so if there is somebody that has a heart attack or has cut themselves or hurt themselves, that they are able to provide services that otherwise an ambulance would have provided in terms of the first aid side of it, until the ambulance can come, if there is even an ambulance in that area. But the idea is really to start setting up systems where we do have ambulances, and where we do have ambulances that can take people to hospitals in the area. So that can be a second step of building this franchise. But the first step in terms of the health sector is really just to have people who can be first aid assistants at community events like soccer events or large music events, and or just be in the neighborhood. Everybody knows this person is somebody who can actually help resuscitate someone if they have had a possible heart attack or any other very basic health first aid health care service. The third one is around really understanding what's going on in the community, meaning who needs what kind of help. So our community care cadets, this is really the name that I thought would be serving the purpose the best, is that this entity, which I am giving a working title of guardian angels, the guardian angels in that community are going to be really encouraged to know their neighbourhood and to know who's living there. Where is there an elderly person that needs assistance? Where is there a family that's struggling with somebody that is addicted to alcohol? So it's really about the social services component of it, so that they may assist through the provision of referral. One of the franchises that we want to set up through the Young Africa School program and later through the Young Africa, well actually through the Young Africa Square program, is a system called the Community Liaison and Information Centres, CLIC. And these are going to be places where we really want to make sure that communities have access to information of what resources are there that can assist anybody, from government, from private non-profit organizations, from the private sector. And it really is a point where people can come and ask for information. So yes, of course, people have Google, and they can find those services also on Google, and it is our intention through the Young Africa School program to actually build websites for every single community where communities are able to, around the school, are able to find resources. But there's also going to be a click center, which is also a combination of a bit of a business center. I will talk about it in another episode, but the whole idea is that you have community care cadets who are in their neighborhood and who are monitoring the streets in a block monitoring system. Some people have called it neighborhood watch. We know these youth don't have cars. We know that some of the places you can't really reach by a car. But as things progress, we are going to introduce bicycles, e-bikes, maybe for the team leaders that have to drive around and see if everybody's okay. And definitely we also want to bring in a system of armed response. So where it's necessary, where we find that there is a high level of criminal activity and residents are living in fear. We want to bring order, we want to bring stability, we want to bring safety. So that is really the whole intention of this Guardian Angel franchise. And again, the plan is really that members in the community will have to contribute financially, which means that if you want your home to be monitored, you will have to make a small monthly contribution every month, so that the youth that are serving the community as community care cadets can have a small income every month that can cover their basic personal needs, can also cover their study fees as they continue studying through the leadership and the entrepreneurship program. And it can also cover their airtime and data needs and some personal needs. It's not a salary. The intention is not to have, at the mini franchises, there's no salary as such. There's basically a stipend or an income, prefer the word income, to also help teach our youth that they are working in order to generate an income to sustain themselves. And so that is the Guardian Angel system. With the new technology available, we can introduce drones, for instance, to have a young person having a drone that can actually monitor an area. And we can have a link to an airlift medical emergency system, which brings in a helicopter in a situation of acute need. And there's many interesting things possible if we have the numbers, and Africa has the numbers. And so we can just simply partner with existing services that provide these services and just connect to them. Like I said before, I hate reinventing the wheel. I really can't stand doing something someone else is doing already. I want Young Africa to move into the gap and to develop a new market so that we grow the market in Africa. It's not intended to be competition for anyone who's already doing something. The intention is to grow new markets, to grow new opportunities, especially from grassroots level up. Now, one of the very interesting things I learned about when I was at a wellness conference in Canada in the late, I think it was in 1999, I think in 1999, I attended a wellness conference, a workplace wellness conference in Canada. And one of the speakers at this event was a man who had done a study around the prison system in America. And he placed this hypothesis on the table that the prison system in America was at the root of America's economic success, starting from the 60s and 70s in particular. And he really had a point. It was very interesting to look at his statistics. I thought it was a little macabre to think that a prison system can create wealth, but as he explained it, it made more and more sense to me. And in fact, when I wrote my book, Young Africa, Policy Blueprint for a Continent of Youth, and published it in 2002, I included a chapter on that particular idea. And I just want to mention it here because part of the possibilities that we have here in Africa is to rethink our prison system, to rethink our community safety systems, to rethink how we deal with criminals. So many criminals in Africa are criminals because they cannot see a normal opportunity, to generate an income. I have a young friend who's in fact a fellow director of the Young Africa Foundation, a founding director of the Young Africa Foundation. And he comes out of the drug and gang scene, and he turned his life around with the help of Jesus Christ. And so, but he really understands what's going on there. And so he is somebody who has said that the jail is full of guys who met a girl who said, "You can't afford me." So he's saying that girls are so materialistic and money is the only thing that counts for them. And I've seen this, I've made this observation with the young girls that I've been working with through the youth development work that I've been doing. Usually the ones who come and attend my courses or my programs are not part of that group, but they know people, they know friends of friends who are literally making a living from sex as a normal student, and and go to look for a blesser, somebody who will bless them, an older man who's got money who can buy them nice things, designer brands and nice hair, and basically keep them alive. So they're prostituting themselves and have no moral compunction about it because it's become a trend. And this is a very, very dangerous trend because it just gives more power to crime. And so we have to claim back as disciples of Jesus Christ. We have to walk in the light, and we are supposed to claim back territory where evil has taken over. And so I do believe that we need to find a way, and there are not find a way, I think there is a way in which we can actually much better engage with people who have fallen into these traps of crime and prostitution and drug abuse, and help them to rehabilitate. And we can do that through institutions. I think in the medieval times, when there was also a lot of chaos in Europe, and also in the Middle East, as well as in other parts of the world, in Asia, setting up monasteries was a social response to coping with people who didn't have much of a livelihood, or who had limited prospects of getting married, or in whichever way didn't quite fit into society. I know that there was a serving component in terms of calling people into service, into a monastery or into a nunnery, and be called to serve, to serve God in this way, or follow the path of Buddha, or whatever. I know that was a component at the time. I am not in favor at all. I'm not in favor of all of single gender setups. I think that it might be a very interesting experiment to move families together with their criminal family member into a community where everybody is able to reposition in life. And so basically, you as a person know if you get caught, because if doing something wrong, your whole family is going to suffer. And I think that's a very, very important way of making sure that, that when it comes to suffering, it becomes more about the social stigma that will be attached to it, and removing the total family out of society into one of these communities. I do want those communities to be caring communities and to be learning communities and to be spaces where people can really focus on developing themselves. But I don't believe that it is healthy for anybody to have a bunch of guys living together and a bunch of women living together. I don't believe that's healthy. I won't go into the details of that. And I know prison is there to punish people, but I think that I'm a great proponent of redemption. And I know there are some people who are psychologically so damaged that they definitely need to be separated from society. But the majority of criminals in Africa are criminals who have been fatherless children or street children, or who have had something going on in their family situation that has practically forced them out onto the street. Or they just were experimenting with drugs because they didn't have proper parental guidance, and again they ended up on the street. So we have more of a social problem in Africa than we have a criminal problem. And yes, of course, through the whole behavior of people being desperate for money, I mean, the Bible says that the love of money is at the root of all evil, and I think that goes to crime as well. It's the love of money, instead of knowing that you need to work for it, that causes criminals to become greedy and think there's an easy way for me to get money. I, quite frankly, have come to the conclusion that poverty is at the root of much evil, much evil, and that people who are poor and who are hopeless and often resort to crime as a means to sustain them, and women resort to prostitution. Guys also resort to prostitution because it's something they can do with their body, and so it really is the part of life, the evil part, which the devil loves and God absolutely hates. And we, as the children of God, as the ones that carry light, it is up to us to claim back territory. And claiming back territory means working and loving the people that have been caught by the devil into crime and into prostitution and into drug addiction, and helping them to get out of it, and helping them to start a new life fresh somewhere else. So part of the whole community safety plan is to set up institutions that can serve as rehabilitation centers for criminals who have not murdered somebody. I believe that murder is really a terrible, terrible crime, and rape is also a terrible crime. And I believe that people who have raped somebody or people who have murdered somebody do need to be in a prison. But there are, I'm not a justice minister. I'm not a legal person. I'm not going to say which person belongs into a prison and which person belongs into a rehabilitation institution. All I'm saying is that I see a need and therefore an opportunity to establish rehabilitation institutions all across Africa. And in doing so, and this is what, according to this man at the conference in Canada, said at the Workplace Wellness Conference, is the fact that the government of America built prisons at many remote villages that didn't have much economic opportunity. The prison became the economic driver of that community, and the prison became an opportunity for the people in the community to provide services, to provide uniforms, to provide catering services, all kinds of things, and that actually stimulated the economy. And that sort of got my brain thinking, that's something we can do. So why not do it in collaboration and in partnership with the governments of Africa, but as private institutions? And so that's a thought, and that is a system that I'm going to pursue because I can, and I don't see why I shouldn't. And if it's going to happen, I don't know. If it's God's will, it will. If not, I don't want it to. So that is another part of the whole community care system. For me, one thing that makes perfect sense is that residents of a rehabilitation institution are working to serve the community in which they have committed the crime, which means that they are the ones that are going to build the roads. They are the ones that are going to put in the paving. They are the ones that are going to do all the hard labor for which we don't have machines yet. And in that way, and also they are the ones that are going to create beautiful parks and gardens. And so living in one of these institutions means you cannot grow your own wealth, but you can certainly contribute to the wealth of the community. And so that is really, that's one of the thoughts of how can we make this happen. But in closing, I want to just address you if you are a criminal. If you are somebody who knows you have done wrong things, and I want to tell you, quite frankly, there is a better way of life. There is a better way to live. If you are somebody living on the street now and begging and scrounging and being, there is a better way to live. And I want to ask you to subscribe to this channel and keep watching, because over the next couple of months and weeks, I'm going to give opportunities that you can see will help you to get out of that behavior. Because your life is worth more than living a life of crime. You have been created by God who loves you, and He wants you to get out of crime. If you are a hacker who's hacking for negative purposes, keep an eye on this channel, because as we develop Young Africa data under the Young Africa Foundation, we are going to need that brilliant brain of yours for good to become a force for good. Now you are a force for evil. You have joined evil. You are following the father of lies. You are following the devil. I'm calling on you to come and join the force for good. Join the force for good. Follow Jesus Christ. That's a way to live. That's the way to having a beautiful life. Redemption is possible for everybody. If you have done something that is bad, of course, you have to bear the consequences of it. But if you are the one that's turning yourself in at the police station, you have a very good chance of getting a very lenient sentence. I know that at this point in time in South Africa, the prisons are overfull. I don't know how it looks like in the rest of the continent, but I'm assuming the government is struggling to keep all the prisoners in prison, all the criminals in prison. So don't turn yourself in yet. Watch this space. There's hope. Thank you for watching this episode. I am very excited about introducing you to the next 3 systems. The one is about stability, and the other one is about policy, and the third one is about building positive value systems based on biblical teachings that have served strong, prosperous civilizations for thousands of years. So, see you in the next episode.